Hello and welcome. This is Lisa Jones, and you are listening to the Exploring Death podcast. Today, I am thrilled to have Peter Panagore with me here on the Exploring Death podcast. And we are really doing an impromptu conversation about near-death experience and mystical experiences, and once you've had them, why it's so difficult to be here on this earth. And you know, I've talked to so many people that have had those experiences, and including myself, and it just, at least I'll speak for myself, that it comes to this point where you're like, why am I even here? Like, I know it's so much better on the other side. So, you know, why am I here? And why is it almost, I wonder if does it make life more difficult almost when you know what's waiting? I don't know. We're just having a conversation. So what do you think, Peter?
I think it makes life much more difficult. To quote a friend of mine, it makes life much more difficult when you know it's on the other side. I think it does. And there are benefits of being here. And that's not really what I mean to say. I mean to say that we still have access to the other side while here, and some of it leaks through, and that's a benefit, but it's not anywhere near the capacity of what it is on the other side. So I've been left with a constant longing and desire for where I know I'm from and to where I want to return. And so it's driven my whole spiritual life. I mean, you mentioned when we began this that your computer's sitting on Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi, which the book that changed my life in terms of my prayer life, and I actually broke with Christianity. Well, I kind of broke with it when I broke with it when I was dead, because God had no religion. But when I came back, I kind of openly broke with it in my practice life by adopting Kriya Yoga as the basis of my prayer life.
Wow. And again, there are no coincidences. I mean, the fact that I, happen to just grab a book to prop up my computer, and that's the book that changed your life or that really helped get you going. I mean, I just love that. That's what I love about us having these experiences of going to the other side. And then suddenly you just see how life, I don't know, that it doesn't seem like there's any accidents. It feels like it's all just perfectly unfolding at every single moment.
And not just for you and for me, but for 7 billion people on Earth. It's all this hugely organized, which I think that the mind of the divine is so beyond us. We can't even grasp that every moment of every day people are having these synchronicities. And how do you design something like that? How do you make a system that makes that?
Oh, I know. And my whole body is chilling as you're saying that, because I was just listening to an Abraham yesterday about, we don't think about like how the world is spinning at exactly the right speed, and that it's going through space, and that the sun is shining, and that it comes up every morning. I mean, we just accept that as part of our experience here on Earth, right? But yet, we worry about every little minutia detail about how does my hair look? Do I have, do I have some spinach in my teeth? Like, we're worrying about these crazy things. And yet, again, like me choosing a book that changed your life to put my computer on this morning. I mean, it's just amazing when you are able to let go of trying to figure it out or try to be concerned about this, that, or the other thing, and just really let go and let it unfold.
Yeah, I think that letting it go is the best part of it, because I can't know what I don't know. And pursuing the knowledge that's beyond my understanding is kind of a waste of time for me, when there are other parts of it that I do know enough about that I want to pursue. So I just kind of accept certain things, like the book underneath the computer, and how it changed my life. So the funny thing is, okay, so here's the funny thing, is that book allowed me to help me to stay here and not struggle as much, or to struggle less with the very subject that we're talking about. It created a wider opening inside of me in order to reconnect more deeply with the divine on the other side, to give me enough strength to stay here.
Right. I love that. Well, and another thing I know that you've said to me that was really powerful, and I heard it just again yesterday from a woman that's been having all of these amazing spiritual experiences, and she doesn't understand why she was agnostic, and but all these things have been happening, and she's like, I'm not a believer, I'm a knower. And I love that that's what you've
Yeah.
said. And the first time I heard you say that, it was so powerful, because it's true. Like, once you've been to the other side and you've had the experience yourself, there's no undoing that. There's no not
Nope.
knowing what you know. And
Yep.
which makes it even sometimes, I mean, it almost makes it more difficult, because it's not like you're just believing in faith. I mean, it's,
And the eye never, the way I experience it and describe it is the eye never shuts off. The eye is, I know that this is a bad analogy because it makes something positive that's negative in literature, but in Tolkien's trilogy, the eye of Sauron, that's over, that it's all-seeing eye, that eye that never shuts off. Only it's a loving and beautiful, beneficent eye,
right.
but it never shuts off, and it never goes away, and it colors everything, every single thing that I see in this world, every feeling that I have, every thought that I have, everything all around me, and so it sets the desire for itself inside my heart.
Wow, beautiful. Well, so for people, I guess I'm feeling like there's probably two different sets of people that are potentially listening. People that have had experiences and people that haven't. And so let's talk about, both of those cases. I mean, for those people who have not had an experience and are seeking and desiring and like, oh my God, I want that. I mean, what thoughts or, what do we say to those people?
Well, first thing I would say is I would ask everyone to raise their hand who has had a visitation from a deceased loved one. And if you had a visitation from a deceased loved one, which seems to be a trans-religious, trans-cultural experience of humanity, doesn't matter, even atheists and agnostics have this happen to them. But if you had a visitation from someone that you love who's passed on and they telepathically communicated to you some sort of knowledge, then you had a mystical experience. You've had a noetic experience. And the word that we're talking about, when I say that I know that I'm known by God, it's a thing that happens underneath my brain, inside my soul, where my soul is connected to this divine eye, the singular eye that sees me. I see the divine. That's the knowing. But to express that, it's ineffable. You can't really ever describe it. And when you do, you never capture it whatsoever. And then it's a transient experience. The person comes to visit you and then they leave. You didn't make it happen. You're powerless. All of those four things, noetic, transient, ineffable, and passive, it happens to you, are four characteristics of William James's marks of mysticism from the varieties of religious experience. Now, he's one of the seminal figures in American history and mysticism. And so the first thing I would argue is that if you had that kind of experience, then you have had an experience of knowing of the divine. Because what typically takes place is that the person who has a belief in the afterlife, my spouse just died, I have a belief in the afterlife, and then this person visits you, or like you have a shared death experience, suddenly you move from believing in this to knowing that one person's love is still living in a personality, a soul, spirit. And now you've gone from believing to knowing, to noetic. And so then it becomes like this scale of gradation. And in this scale, there's most of humanity, I think. I think most people have some kind of mystical experience. And I say that because I've been surveying churches for a year. As I travel around New England and preach, I ask people the question that I just asked, and a bunch of other questions too. But all of this stacking right up to the tip-top level where you get NDEers and people who've been in the unitive state of oneness of being, right? All of that's a flat plane from heaven. So there's this radical equality of human mystical experience that when viewed from above is, this deep. Well, we see that this depth of it, we think it's huge, but really only the divine is the mystery itself. all the rest of us only see in part. So every mystic, every near-death experiencer, everyone who has a visitation, we only see a little glimpse. So in that, we're much more equal than people think we are.
I love that so much because I think you're right. People think they haven't had an experience, and yet, because I mean, I know there's some other questions that I know you asked too. I mean, even like deja vu and even dreams, right? I mean, to me, dreams can be very mystical experiences, or I mean, what other types of things that people
Well,
maybe don't think are mystical but are?
well, if you ever heard, saw, or were saved by an angel, I asked that question. Anybody like that? Yeah, and 10 people raise their hand. Has anybody ever here seen Jesus? Some people do. Anybody here ever have a vision of the divine inside themselves, where they had some sort of transportive indwelling of the spirit that feels like sweet, sweet, beautiful honey, or they were taken out of themselves and transported in like a rapture and ecstasy? All of those things and other kinds of experiences. Even the having the experience of someone visiting you in your dream,
Hmm.
like, a dead person in particular.
Yeah.
Or you're standing on the edge of Maui, you're in Maui where it's warm, and
Hmm.
you're out and you see this beautiful sunset like the photograph behind you,
Right.
and you have a moment of divine selflessness where the beauty becomes you and you become the beauty. That's also a mystical experience.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I mean, for me, I get chills when I feel like the divine is like, it's a yes, it's a knowing. And I mean, I've learned to understand that feeling of when I hear truth. It's just like this energetic pull that just lights me up. Right. And
Me too, same
right.
here.
Yeah. So I love that. And so as I love this conversation because I truly think that people, a lot of times that are searching for this experience, they're having them, but they're not you know defining them as such. Or if they've had one, then they discount it or something. It's like it's not enough. It didn't meet their expectation, or they're afraid of really going there because it's a whole new world, right? I mean, that's another
Right.
thing, is
What
people
do
like
you give
have
up?
these. Right, they have these mystical experiences, but then they're like, oh well, I just would rather go back into my cave of not knowing because it's too scary to imagine this, never ending, unbelievable connection that's out there.
Well, your soul, a noetic experience marks inside your soul, and your soul never forgets. So
Mm.
even though you can mask it and turn and on the I don't want to call weak because that's not the right word, but I'm not sure what it is. On the lesser end of the divine experience of mysticism, you can more readily turn your back on it. But in these other realms, the more transportive realms, like you get saved from in front of the train by the angel, well, you can't really explain that away.
Right.
Or you get raptured into oneness of being, and it so radically changes your perception, either through mystical experience or through the mystical experience of near-death experience, which are similar.
Hmm.
um, well, then you can't forget that.
Right.
You can pretend, but no.
I'm telling you, just the other day, I was driving up the road that I live on, and there's a crossroad. And I'm telling you, this truck came out of nowhere. I mean, there was a patch of trees so I couldn't see him coming up the hill. And he must have been going 50 miles an hour. He blew through his stop sign. I didn't have a stop sign where I was. And I slammed my brakes on. And I swear, Peter, I looked, and it looked like my car did an accordion, like it shrank back and the car
Wow.
zoomed by, and I stopped, and I mean, I was like, how did that just happen? Because I mean, he could
Wow.
totally should have hit me. And I had another similar experience years and years ago. I was coming around the corner in Connecticut, super windy road, and all of a sudden there's a deer, a big buck, standing right in the middle of the road. And all I knew is, I'm like, I'm gonna hit him head on. I just closed my eyes and was like, help me. And all of a sudden I mean, nothing happened. I look in my rearview mirror, it's still standing there.
Wow.
So yeah, I've
Right.
had some crazy.
Right. Right.
It
But
feels
you
like
can,
the Jim Carrey movies, where you like, rubber and you go through things and it's like, what? This is such a crazy life.
disconcerting.
Yes. But you don't want to take it for granted either. You don't just drive around like a
No,
maniac, but
because you can get hurt. And
yes.
you can get hurt and not die.
Yeah. That's right. Well, that's
So,
what's so crazy is that we are so, I mean, talking to all these people with near-death experiences. I mean, just getting a paper cut is so painful. Like I can't get over some of the things that people have been through and they walk away without a mark or they do get injured, but they come back healed. And so, yeah, it's amazing. We're super fragile beings at the end of the day.
oh, death is the one thing. One of the things that came very clear to me is that death is this thin veneer.
Yes.
This all around us all the time, and it's easy to pop right through. Very easy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so then, and so the group was, people that maybe feel like they haven't had one, which now I think they probably all have, but they just don't qualify it or classify it as that. And then those of us that have had one and, I mean, there's times that it's just like, I'm so ready to go to the other side. Right. But yet I also know that we came here purposely to have this contrast, to feel the physical, to create in a physical world, because when we're on the other side, we don't have that opportunity.
So have as much fun as you possibly can for as long as you can. That's kind of where I'm at. So I like to play with this thing. I'm stuck inside it, so why not have a good time?
That's right.
And
That's
I've never confused seriousness with solemnity. So you can be super serious about your spirituality and still really have fun with your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I deal with that.
I love it. And I do, because when I channel people from the other side, they're like, oh my gosh, if I would have known that I could have done anything and I just held myself back. It's like, yeah, go. It's like, this is the time. Like,
right.
There's there's no point in just being here and being scared and not, just having the time of your life, because this is what you're here for.
And that near-death experience gives me the strength and perspective to be able to be, I don't want to say wasteful with my life, because I'm not wasting my life, but I have not been in pursuit of, well, the status of the world, frankly. I guess that's about it. And I therefore had a really fun time. I've just like, and I intend to continue having a fun time.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Well, are you okay if I pull a few cards and just see what
yeah, pull a few cards.
All
pull
right,
a few
let's
cards.
see what Spirit says about this whole idea of why we're here. What what is the point of all that? That's the other thing, because it comes back to like, why did we choose to come here?
All you need is love. Love, 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 love.
All right. Love. So it's so funny. So the first one, the first card, which is the blockage card, is acceptance. And so I think that's what, it's almost like we all come here and like, oh, I can't accept myself. Like nobody, we're all, I mean, I was at a Tony Robbins event with 10,000 plus people, and he's like, who here has abandonment issues? Like 10,000 and 2 people raise their hand, right? Who here thinks they're not good enough? Every single person. I mean, like when you survey everybody, the acceptance is nil. It's like we are born into this experience, just not accepting who we are. We've forgotten,
We've forgotten. I think that's really what it's not so much that I know that I was known on the other side, is that I remembered that I was known. Right. And I still have remembrance.
Right. Yeah. And then when you feel that unconditional love of the other side, you realize you're not alone here, and that you're fully accepted for who you are. And that's what we're here, I think, ultimately to come back to learn, right? Is that we are enough as we are. So the action is emerging, which I love. And I think that goes hand in hand with what we were talking about as far as just emerging, just being your full self, totally, embracing your humanity and having fun and joy. And really, we're here to be happy. I mean, I remember the Dalai Lama, he's like, we're here to be happy.
And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Or at least I was like, really?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And then the outcome is sanctuary. And I kind of like that, because ultimately it comes back to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all within, and we're all looking outside of ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
be validated and feel okay and good enough. And like you said, that external kind of validation of materialism and, you know, status and all of that. And it's none of that at the end of the day, right? It's
Nope.
and my whole body is all lit up when I say that.
Can't take it with you, but you can take this treasure.
Yes.
And it's the same treasure in me is in you, which is why we have such a good time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we recognize that in one another.
Yep.
I think that's the other thing I love. I mean, we met, well, I guess it was a year ago at the International Association of Near-Death Studies in Seattle, that conference. But it was just like, when you go to these conferences, it's just like instant knowing people, you know, it's that instant, because people's hearts are open and they're not, you know, I mean, I guess we're all a little scared, but we're open enough to be open-hearted and connect with those around us.
And willing to look for the light in others. And
Yes.
And if they're looking for the light in you, then you meet in the light itself.
That's right. I love it. I love it. Well, any parting words about this little short conversation that we just jumped on the phone? You literally called me because I was like, "Hey, you know, let's do another interview," and I was like, "Let me know." He's like, "How about now?" And it was 7:30 in the morning. I'm like, "Okay, let me finish my tea and I'll be right there." But it's great. I love these impromptu conversations.
Me too. And you have an L for love, or Lisa, one of those
That's
two.
right.
I'm not sure. One of those two.
I know. Oh, and I think I might be changing my name. What do you think of Angelisa?
Angelisa, very angelic,
Right?
Lisa.
I know. I kind of like it. Angelisa. I just got the URL last night, angelisajones.com, because I can't get lisajones.com. That was a porn star for a while. And
No,
as soon
you're
as,
right. You don't
and
want
then
that
as soon
one.
as she let that go, I missed the opportunity, because then a Lisa Jones realtor got it in Connecticut, from like right down the road
Of all
from where I used to live,
places.
of all places. So
Right.
yeah, I can't get Lisa Jones, but I can
How
change
about
my
Lisa?
name.
How about lisajones.love?
Well, yeah, I could do that.
Peter Panagore.love.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
anyway, I cut you off. Any parting?
The parting words. When I was dead, I knew everything that I needed to know. There was nothing that I did not know. Everything came all at once with all my questions. And so that leaves me with, why is this life a lesson? And all I'm left with here is love. Is that love is really the lesson here for me.
Wow. Yep. My whole body is lit up with that thought. It's all about love.
Amen, sister.
Well, thank you, Peter. This is a fabulous conversation. I love you. I love just knowing you and being a part of your life and sharing your words of wisdom with my listeners. So thank you for being here.
And Angelisa, I love seeing the light inside you and talking to you. We have lots of fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Exploring Death podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any financial or legal decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Exploring Death. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.